evening, friends. So today we are going to look into the UPSC current affairs of February month, the date 10th February 2021. So let's go on to the first topic. So World Sustainable Development Summit 2021. So this summit was held yesterday in New Delhi. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be inaugurating the World Sustainable Development Summit. So main theme of this summit will be redefining our common future, safe and secure environment for all. So as we all know that sustainable development is one of the most important concept in the environment perspective. As we all know that our future generation also and they are having all rights to they are all having the rights to enjoy the resources which we are using now, right? So this summit will be mostly focused for the climate change. So this summit will be bringing a wide number of government, the business leaders and academicians, and also it will also bring together the scientists working in environment field and also youth and civil society. The main motto will be to fight the climate change. So in India, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and Ministry of Renewable Energy and Ministry of Earth Science will be the key partners for this summit. Okay, so this is the 20th edition which was held and which is going to be held, which will be inaugurated by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Actually, this 20th edition is a flagship event by the Energy and the Resource Institute. So TERI, T-E-R-I, the Energy and the Resource Institute. It is a research institute which is located at New Delhi, which is specialized in the field of energy, environment and sustainable development. So these are the most three important concepts which the TERI organizes and also the TERI focuses on. So actually it was established in 1974 and also it was formerly known as Tata's Energy Research Institute. It has been changed, it has been renamed and called as TERI, the Energy and Research Institute. So let's look on to what is sustainable development. So sustainable development is a concept where our present resources which we are currently using is also for the future generation people. So the resources which you are using now is obviously, and also the next generation, the upcoming generation are having all rights to utilize the resources which we are using now. Okay, so the main aim of the sustainable development is to development for the future generation and also development for the present and also for the future generation. Okay, without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So they are having all rights to enjoy the resources. So actually this sustainable development definition was given in our Common Future report in 1987, and the definition was given by a Brundtland Commission. So this was the commission which gave the definition for sustainable development. And also United Nations has given some 17 sustainable development goals which every nation and every nation and every country must focus for that goals, and every country needs to achieve it one by one in a slow and progressive manner. Okay, so World Sustainable Development Summit was held in New Delhi. Our Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to inaugurate it. So the main focus is for the fighting the climate change. As we all know that climate change is one of the crucial part at present scenario which is being getting worse. And okay, the second topic, United Nations Human Rights Council. So United Nations Human Rights Council, actually a couple of months before, actually when the president Donald Trump was the president of USA, he just withdrew from the United Nation Human Rights Council. But after the presidency of Joe Biden, the current president of USA, he has agreed to rejoin to the United Nations Human Rights Council. So what is United Nations Human Rights Council? So United Nations Human Rights Council is an intergovernmental body. It's an United Nations a subpart. So it is a part of United Nations. Its headquarters is located in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay. So it was established in 2006. It was earlierly called as United Nations Commission on Human Rights, but this name has been changed to United Nations Human Rights Council. So we have, for the UPSC perspective, the composition of an organization plays a crucial role. Okay, so United Nations Human Rights Council, let's look on the United Nations Human Rights Council composition. The UNHRC, United Nations Human Rights Council, has 47 members serving at any time with election held to fill up the seats every year, based on the allocation to the region across the world to ensure the geographical location. So it's simple, guys. So United Nations Human Rights Council are having 47 serving members who will be going and who will be contesting the election. Okay, so it will be in a manner that in the globe each geographical location will be selected and there will be a representative for the election. So in global each and every small location perspective, there will be a member who will be a part of election process. The member of council who will be there in an election period. For example, let us take, if India is being allocated, or if India is being elected as an United Nations Human Rights Council member, India will be having a consistent period of 3 years, but India is not eligible for immediate re-election after serving 2 consecutive years. Okay, so I'm repeating once again. So if a member, for example, let us take India, if India is being elected for 3-year period, they are not, which means India is not eligible to, or India is not eligible for the immediate re-election after serving for the 2 consecutive years. What are the main functions of Human Rights Council? So in India also we are having National Human Rights Commission. So they are working, and also the United Nations Human Rights Council, their function role, both are in a similar way. Okay, so United Nations Human Rights Council passes non-binding resolution on human rights issue through a periodic review of 139 UN member states called as Universal Period Review, UPR. Okay, so what is the main function of National Human Rights Commission? So in India, the National Human Rights Commission, their main role is to protect the people. So if they are having any issues, for example, if they are having any rights issues, the problem of these right issues will be solved by the National Human Rights Commission. We can also arise a complaint in National Human Rights Commission if there is any discrimination between a person, if there is any discrimination in the job. So all the racial and ethnic minorities, and also LGBT rights, the women's rights, the freedom of expression, all this problem, if a person or if a group of person or communities are rising, the National Human Rights Commission plays a major role in solving the problem. So similarly, United Nations Human Rights Council also plays a similar role. They are also playing a similar role, but they are providing it globally. If you take India, it is confined to the Indian territories only. So United Nations as a global body will be confined to global level. Okay, so United Nations work closely with the Office of the High Commissioner for the Human Rights, OHCHR. Okay, so United Nations works closely with the Office of High Commissioner for the Human Rights. So India has been elected. Earlier India was been elected in the UNHRC for a period of 3 years. So it is the third year for India. So once again I repeat, United Nations Human Rights Council is an intergovernmental body. It is an United Nations body. The main function of this body is to address or solve the problems of the right issues such as freedom of expression, women rights, LGBT rights, and rights of racial and ethnic minorities. Third topic, world's smallest reptile. So it has been very interesting to see that world's smallest reptile, which was found in Madagascar, which is near to Africa's coastline, the east part of African coastline. Okay, so a chameleon. So it is a chameleon. It was discovered in the island country of Madagascar. Okay, so the new species which was found was named as Brookesia nana. So Brookesia nana is a new species which is the world's smallest reptile ever found. Okay, so it is a chameleon. Okay, it was in Madagascar. The team found one male and one female species, but it was an expedition done in 2012. But once again the expedition was done and they found out the world's smallest reptile. Okay, so its total length is about 13.5 millimeter with its snout and two vent. So what is snout to vent? So snout to vent is a body part from head to the full body part except tail part. So if the tail is included for the chameleon, so its total length is 21.6 millimeter if the tail is included. The snout to vent part, so up to the snout to the vent part, the total length is 13.5 meter. Okay, so before this Brookesia nana was found, Brookesia micra was thought to be the smallest reptile, but at now it has been changed. But at present Brookesia nana is the smallest reptile to ever be identified. Okay, so in the UPSC's perspective, the reptile is not an important concept. So the reason why I took this article is because of the Madagascar. So Madagascar is being east of the African coastal region, African country, and also it is very closely geographically located near to the Indian Ocean too, where we are having Mauritius and Reunion Island, and also there are different types of island in near to Madagascar and also near to the Indian Ocean. They are having enough number of island in the Indian Ocean. So this was the reason why I took this article. The main reason was for the Madagascar. It will be helpful for you to solve the geography part in the UPSC preliminary examination. So we are going to the fourth topic. So National Monsoon Mission. So National Monsoon Mission. So National Monsoon Mission was developed by Ministry of Earth Science. Okay, so it's a state of the art weather and climate prediction model. So why do we need to predict the climate? So the main reason for predicting the climate is fully dependent on the farmers. So they are our backbone of our country. Though even though we are consuming, without the farmers we will not be able to consume food. So they are considered to be the backbone of the India. So we need to predict the climate change. So at present we are having a huge landslide in Chamoli district in Uttarakhand, where n number of people are getting injured, and many people have been injured, and also they have died, they have passed away. So it's a very critical and it's a very crucial concept. So National Monsoon Mission. So monsoon will be dependent on the day-to-day climatic activities. Okay, so weather, so what is the definition of weather? So weather is a day-to-day average in the climate. For example, day-to-day activities in the atmosphere. So if we take climate, it is for the period of 100 years. Okay. So it will be a period of long period. So so I think many of will be confused regarding climate and weather. So weather is day-to-day activity and climate is not a day-to-day activity in the atmosphere. So climate is a minimum average of 100 years climatic change in the atmosphere. Okay, so let us come to the National Monsoon Mission. So National Monsoon Mission was developed by Ministry of Earth Science, where we will be predicting the climate and also the weather. So if we predict earlierly, if we predict the climate, we can help the farmers, we can stop the natural disaster which are arising us, we can stop urban flood, we can stop cyclones, and we can stop all the things, all the natural and human-made activities which are occurring to harm us. So the main reason for National Monsoon Mission is to predict the climate and the day-to-day weather changes in the atmosphere. Actually, this is being included up to short range to the medium range. So short range starts from 1 to 10 days. So the next part starts from 10 to 30 days, and the third part is seasonal. It's up to one season. So one season approximately can go up to 3 to 4 months. So this model developed under National Monsoon Mission have shown very high skill in predicting important weather events on the different time scales during the last 3 years. So since last 3 years, we are able to predict important weather events which have been occurring. The overall objective of National Monsoon Mission is to improve the monsoon prediction over India on all the time scales, and hence it is implemented for the whole country, which include all states and union territory. So National Monsoon Mission not only works in the Indian level, and they are to be implemented in each state, and also they are going to be implemented in the whole UT in the country. So the main aim is for the monsoon prediction. So, and also National Monsoon Mission built a partnership between academic and research and development organization, both in national and international level. So different researchers and different academicians are following and also are analyzing, and also they are working together as a partnership in both national and international level to solve the problem arising through monsoon. Okay, so monsoon mission in simple words we can say seasonal prediction, extended range prediction. So what is the range? So range is short range to the medium range. So short to medium range consists of 10 days. So extended range consists of 10 to 30 days up to for approximately to say 1 month. So the third one is seasonal change. So seasonal is up to for one season. So what is the third parameter in monsoon mission? For the physical process and to analysis. If we can say that for analysis we can go up with research and development. So it was implemented by Ministry of Earth Science. So fourth topic is water scarcity in Himalaya. So why Himalaya is in news? The main reason for Himalaya in news is because of the Chamauli district, which is in Uttarakhand, is facing a glacier disaster, which is facing a huge number of glacial disaster. So why it is in news? A news called Components of Himalayan River Flowing in a Changing Climate has tried to understand how rainfall, runoff, snow melt and glacier melt are affecting the Himalayan river. So a study, it is a study concept where the study named Component of Himalayan River Flow in a Changing Climate, and they have tried to understand how rainfall runoff and snow melting and glacier melting affects the Himalayan river. So we can say that in India the major Himalayan river are Indus, Ganges and the Brahmaputra. Okay, so let us talk about the catchment area. So what is catchment area? So catchment area is an area where the water collects when it rains and often bounded by hills. So it will be fully surrounded by hills, and there will be a catchment area where we can, where the rain falls and where the catchment area extends. So it's like similar to the pond which is surrounded by a huge n number of mountain. So as the water flow over the landscape, it finds its way into the stream and down to the soil. So as we all know that the river Ganga or the river Ganges flows from the Gangotri glacier. So from the origin, the Ganges starts from the Gangotri glacier and moves to the plains of the Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, then Bihar, and then also it obviously flow into the Bay of Bengal, and it generally will go into the Bangladesh, and it lastly drains into the Bay of Bengal. Okay, so some of this water stays underground and continues to slowly feed the river in times of low rainfall. So next we are going to look about which are the most important river and which are the most important country that cannot that that cannot be dependent without river. Okay, so the main river are Indus, Ganges and Brahmaputra. So Indus originates from Tibet, Ganges originates from Gangotri glacier, and Brahmaputra too originate from Tibet. So Brahmaputra flowing to the eastwards, it enters to India through a Namcha Barwa mountain. So it is a very wide mountain. It takes a U-turn and it flows through India. So the major Himalayan countries or the major Himalayan river which are dependent on Himalayan countries are India, Nepal, Pakistan and China. So these four countries are majorly dependent on the Himalayan rivers for daily needs and also for their energy production. So India is fully dependent upon Brahmaputra, Indus and also with Ganges, Ganga. So Pakistan is fully dependent upon the major river called Indus. So China is fully dependent upon Indus and Brahmaputra. So the Pakistan and Nepal fully depend upon similarly we can say Ganges and also Indus and also Brahmaputra. So what does this study conclude? So what was the findings of this study? The studies find that if drier and warmer scenario continues in the near future, so approximately they are saying that 2031 to 2050, we are more likely to face water stress in the Himalayan catchment area. So they are simply saying that during the period of 2031 to 2050, water in the Himalayan region will be dried out, due to the warmer scenario, due to the hot scenario. So next study states that the result shows that the glacier melt increases about 15 to 70 percentage. So at present it is melting in a very faster manner due to the warmer climate in India and also due to the different types of pollutions. Okay, the findings stated that we can also say it in conclusion that the researchers analysis that proper water management and governance in the Himalayan catchment area are very necessary to have an effective water management resources and also to avoid the crisis or we can say scarcity in Himalayan rivers. So after ocean, ice caps and glaciers are those which are providing huge amount of water for the resources for the Indians. So sorry, for the in the nearby area. So, and also they suggested that effect of Indian summer monsoon and western disturbance on the Himalayan catchment area leads to a problem. So we as an Indian, or we as a citizen of country, we need to protect and we need to solve all the problems regarding pollution, regarding the global warming. So first of all, we have to reduce the global warming, and also we have to reduce our greenhouse effect. So next we are going to the fifth topic. We are going to the question, prelims based question. So which of the following is or are the tributaries of Brahmaputra? So actually I took this question from the Himalayan river concept, where I explained you about the Brahmaputra river. So it will be very interesting to know that UPSC will ask questions regarding the tributaries of an river. So let us try to answer this question. So which of the following are the tributaries of Brahmaputra? Statement 1, Dihang. Statement 2, Kameng. Statement 3, Subansiri. Statement 4, Dibang. Statement 5, Lohit. So the Brahmaputra is a very very long river. It is having tributary of all the five statement. So Dihang, Kameng, Subansiri, Dibang and Lohit are tributaries of Brahmaputra. So the answer is D, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So second question. Consider the following statement regarding United Nations Human Rights Council. So United Nations Human Rights Council works with global way in human rights issue. So it is a multilateral body. First statement. India is not a member of UNHRC. So it is not a multilateral body. It is an intergovernmental body in which UNHRC works with all the countries and government. It works with all the countries government, and also it gives a solution for the rights issue for the people in a country perspective and also for the in a global perspective. India is not a member of UNHRC. Sorry guys. So India is a member of United Nations Human Rights Council. So the correct answer goes D. Neither one nor two. So that's all for today's current affairs. I hope you got an idea about the February month today. I mean 10th February 10th current affairs. So thank you.